A. Next one. A.
Okay.
So Angie and I met when we both started working at Aritzia. So we are 10 years, 11 years strong at this point.
Yeah.
And growing.
Yeah.
So
and growing.
Just want to say I value this friendship a lot, and you mean a lot to me. It's okay, hold the tears for later.
No, I know.
But anyway, so we naturally gravitated towards each other. I don't know if maybe I cracked a joke or she cracked a joke, but someone started laughing. Definitely the way she was talking, I was like, I know this talk.
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, maybe there's some similarities there in like kind of how we grew up and our environments. There's a certain rhythm to how you talk.
Oh yeah.
When you're in those environments. And so that
we know.
Yeah. So Angie started talking like that at Aritzia, and I was like, oh damn, she's in it thick.
Yo, do I got enough chapstick on Louis? Dude, do I have enough chapstick on Tony?
So that's kind of where we connected. For me, it started elementary school. I think it did for you too.
Yeah.
From like kindergarten all the way to grade 8, I was very much surrounded by mostly Italian and Portuguese. Very small amounts of people that looked like me, very small amounts of people that looked like they were from anywhere else, essentially. Right. I was introduced to racism so early and such at a tender age that, I didn't know who to blame, but I was frustrated.
Right.
And I couldn't understand why I was dealing with this, because I was just like, I'm a nice person. I treat people with respect. Why are some of these kids coming at me for no reason? And I'm grateful that I ended up having the opportunity to go to public high school. It gave me the sort of like diverse environment that I was really wanting.
How did you know at such a young age that you wanted to go to a public school?
Right.
Because when you're so intertwined already in that space, it's tough to see something else.
I was exhausted being around the same environment, the same people, the same culture, the same food, the same mindset, the same everything. And I was just like, I want culture, I want something rich, I want diversity, I want to be around also a lot of my own people.
Yeah.
People that look like me. And so I craved that. But very early on, being, for the most part, the only Black person and the only Black girl in classes, it became obvious very quickly from, curious comments to very obvious comments to flat out racist remarks. I kind of quickly was like, all right, I'm like the same. Right. Because like we're the same age and we like the same things, but I'm also very different. My complexion is darker, my hair is different, culture is different, things like that. Thankfully, these were never things I was ever ashamed of. I say this to say that my experience in elementary school, I'm grateful that it was really only for a short period of time. At a very young age, also going through depression was really scary, and I didn't know where it came from. My parents didn't understand it, but it really does go to show how, I think parents have to be conscious of how they're raising their kids, because it could be incredibly damaging to other innocent kids in the process. The reason why I blame their parents is because where are people learning racism? To be a child and to say things, especially like the N-word. I heard that more times than I would have wanted to growing up from a lot of these kids. And in my mind, I'm like, how do you even know that word and how do you even know what it means? And I had to desensitize myself at such a young age. No one prepares you for that. So here's the thing, it's not a problem to them because they're too young to understand that. It's a problem to their parents.
Right.
And their parents
reflected onto them.
Exactly. Their parents are having these conversations at home.
Right.
They take these conversations from the home to the kids, from the kids to the school, and then here we are. One of the biggest things for me to escape the racism that I had faced by a lot of these kids, I literally wanted to remove every single one of them from my life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that meant letting go of some of the people that were actually my friend and were there for me. But in my mind, I kind of saw them all as the same.
Right.
But different versions. And so I was just like, let me just remove all of them. I have no patience. I don't care. We are not friends. But that was me reacting to years of, again, a mental, emotional, verbal abuse. What was interesting as well is these experiences also made me not look at them as kids. It made me look at them as like adults almost.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm just like, kids shouldn't talk to other kids like this. It made me look at them as these angry adults. I'm like, why are you so mad that you have to yell the N-word? I heard you. What do you want me to do? What the fuck? Okay. What do you want me to do? I'm sitting here living my life. you're over there and you're like, hey nigger, what am I supposed to do with that word? Why is our existence such a problem to you? I'll never forget this. I was with a friend in elementary school and she was dating someone at the time, not a nice guy, and I was with her and he was yelling things to her, she was yelling things back to him, and she was my friend, so I was gonna defend her, both white. And so I kind of yelled something back at him, like, leave her alone, don't say something like that to her. And he yelled across the street, maybe like 20 feet away, shut up, you effing nigger. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, what brought you to that place? What brought you to a place to be able to think it's acceptable to say something like this? That experience sat with me for months, because it made me feel like if I get loud or if I use my voice in any type of way, I think of that experience and I think of that word, and I have to process what that means, right? And again, as a kid, I think maybe you got the same experience with your parents, but when I would go home and tell my parents that like this kid said this or that kid said that, or my parents would just be like, oh, go to the principal's office. To be honest, going to the principal's office was no better. They were all white. So like I'd go to the principal's office and I would say like, this is what this person said to me. I would be in tears, crying. And so I was broken, and some of these authority figures would look at me and be like, oh, well, I'm sure, he didn't mean it or she didn't mean it, and it's okay. Like, no disciplinary action, no conversation with their parents. And so I thought to myself, okay, I see what's happening here.
This is not you.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not me. Yeah. This is a very toxic and dangerous environment.
Get out. Sorry, man.
Okay.
Get out!
Well, let's talk about your experience in high school, because I think what people don't know, so again, Angie and I have gone to, for the most part, Catholic schools. The dominant demographic is Italian and Portuguese, and maybe a bit of Eastern Europeans, but for the most part it's Italian and Portuguese, I would say.
Italian for sure, and then I would say the second demographic, Spanish.
Interesting.
So it was Italian and Spanish.
I don't know what it was like for you, but for me, when I was walking home from school, like in elementary school I'm talking about, my mind was always on what kids said about me. The moment I knew I was different, I was fixated by it, and I just didn't like that feeling, and it just occupied my mind a lot.
Yeah.
That's when I started focusing more on my external looks, trying to fit in, to look more white.
And a lot of the trends that were happening as well didn't include people that looked like us.
Oh my god.
Like if you think of a lot of the shows we watched growing up, like Lizzie McGuire, a lot of their like boyfriends at the time definitely did not look like us either.
Yeah.
So we're watching this TV and we're taking it in as young women of color. We're kind of like, oh, where are we in this? I'm so grateful we're at a point now where we have conversations around representation and diversity and how important it is. Because I think for us as kids, we didn't really understand what representation or diversity really meant.
We were just already so engulfed in the environment around us that's all we knew.
That's all we knew.
I was told the word chink a lot, and I was desensitized to that, to the point where I was like, okay, just call me that. It was my nickname.
No, Angie, so, I did not know that.
I just knew I stuck out, and I was like, okay, this is just not right, but I guess this is gonna be my life. That world was just so toxic. I don't know if I like grew my personality to be bigger or more expressive to combat how I was oppressed by the way that I looked. I tried to stand out in other ways. If I'm not gonna be liked for the way that I look,
you want to be liked for some sort of way. So maybe it was a coping mechanism for you. If I don't look the part, then maybe I can at least act the part.
Yeah.
That way I kind of blend in. I think I dealt with that too. I was like, I'm never going to be white. I'm not going to have blonde hair. I'm not like, and I don't want to look like that because I like how I look. I didn't necessarily want to be them or act white. I still wanted to be myself because I think my personality came out real quick. As I was growing up, and I couldn't hide it.
It's only until people start telling you, stop being yourself. I was the most confident in grade 7 and 8, but at the same time, I was experiencing a lot of bullying.
But do you feel like the bullying was racially targeted? Or were people also bullying you for other things? Like, were kids just being flat out mean? Or were they also kind of like, you're Asian, or why do you look like this?
It was like, specifically, I was Asian. Yeah, and like, if I did anything that was white, they'd call me out and be like, Angie, you're not this, you're Asian. And it's like, oh my God, fuck. That energy and the tone that they use, it made me hate being Asian. So it was the opposite of you, actually. Their voices telling me your eyes are too small or your nose is flat.
So that's the really damaging part. And I love how much you've grown as a person. I just want to say that. And how you've really come to be yourself, and you take these experiences and you think about them and you reflect on them, but you don't let it define who you are now. I'm sorry that you had to experience that, and accepting a racial slur as your nickname. Like, that should not be the case, but unfortunately these are a lot of the experiences we had. I had to numb myself to the N-word. You know, and I remember being in class sometimes and walking by, and you know, a guy would stop me and be like, oh hey, like this person has something to say to you. And I was like, oh, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm a kid, I'm like cheery and smiley. And I was like, what? He's like, oh, like he called you the N-word and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and I'm just like,
so much fear.
It created so much fear and anxiety. In my mind, I was like, yeah, fucking asshole. And I remember that day I went to the bathroom, cried, and my friends, you know, came and they cried, and they couldn't understand. Like, I think the biggest thing for me, I had nobody around me that looked like me that could be like, we got this together.
Yeah.
I had to fight this alone. So it's made me a whole lot fucking stronger at a very young age, and I've had to build this tough skin. And in some ways it's benefited us, but I think in other ways we're exhausted. I don't want to fucking have to deal with teaching people
or just being afraid, living in fear of what the next comment might be.
Exactly.
There's only so much you can handle when you're a kid. You actually reminded me of that feeling of not knowing what somebody might say as soon as they open their mouth.
I couldn't learn. I couldn't concentrate in class.
Exactly.
I couldn't concentrate because my mind was so focused on who is going to be the next person to make fun of me. I remember one kid told me that I was as black as that telephone. I mean, to be honest, I kind of laughed at first, and I told my parents. The funny thing is my parents could turn a lot of these experiences into jokes. I remember being told I was as dark as that telephone, or I was born in a pile of shit, that I was literally conceived through shit on the ground.
Okay, and what do you want me to do about that?
Today I can laugh it off because so you can't be racist and dumb. Pick a fucking lane. How are you gonna be racist and tell me I was born on a pile of shit?
I remember sometimes saying, that literally makes no sense. What do you mean I can't see? Like, I'm obviously fucking looking at you. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, how come nobody else is standing up for me? Am I the dumb one?
That's interesting, because that was the hardest pill I think for both of us to swallow. Is there wasn't enough people around to stand up for us. From the name calling to like misidentifying us to the most ridiculous comments of you not seeing me being as black as a phone on the wall. Like, I love my chocolatey skin. And you love your beautiful slanted eyes.
So much of like questioning if that was the right way of living or the way that we are living right now. But we had to do even more work to get out of that mindset.
Oh, for sure.
And just out of that world. When I started going downtown more and seeing different groups, I was like, wow, I'm so curious. I'm just like, there's so much more out there than that little school and that place that I made into my world.
It's weird. It's almost like by day, I was with these white kids, and maybe sometimes I thought I was white, I don't know. But then when I went home, I was like, oh, I'm definitely black. I walk in my home, there's that familiar smell. My parents are talking, we're listening to music, you know what I mean? So it was that environment that helped build that sense of identity. My parents made sure I went to Caravana every year. I know a lot of people might not feel, or might feel a particular way about it, but that is honestly my favorite day of the year, and I've been going since I was a kid. Being there and being around people, you know, with a Caribbean background, or people that also just want to come and celebrate, like, it's made me be so proud to be Caribbean.
And that started when you were young, and like your family kept that up. So it's more than just a festival to you. It means something, it's something deeper.
It has a very deep meaning. At this point in my life, I can walk confidently and be like, listen, I'm Topaz, bitch, what do you want? It took a lot to get there, and a lot of that had to do with having these conversations with my family and then really understanding where it came from. Not to say that I didn't go through challenges in high school, but I definitely think that they played a role in me securing my identity and not feeling like I needed to be somewhere else. In terms of what society has done, that's a different story. It's like your parents immigrated from Vietnam, and my parents immigrated from Trinidad, and so I think, you know, coming to a very white environment like Canada, you're thinking, all right, what are the steps that I need to take to provide for my family? I might get a little deep here, but you know, my mom told me when she arrived here, you know, she had, as most people that are not from here, do they have an accent? In the Caribbean, and my family being from Trinidad, you know, my mom had a very strong accent. And so she didn't want to be hindered from getting employment. And so she actually went to a speech therapist to help her, I guess, tone down her accent. That way she could sound more like me. And so she sounds like me now. But she has the ability to kind of turn it on and turn it off. Hearing that even as a kid didn't really resonate with me at the time. But as I'm older now, I just think of what the stereotypes of perceptions were, right? Like, is it because you have an accent, you're perceived as you know, not as smart or not as capable or not as competent? I can't imagine maybe the mental kind of stress you had to go through to think like, okay, if I talk like this, and she has for the most part a European name as well. Well, I wouldn't say European name, but a name where it's not distinctively Black. It's weird because it's almost as if she didn't want to remove herself from my identity, but she had to rejig her identity here.
Like assimilate to the environment.
Exactly.
Similar to you, well, my mom didn't go to speech classes, but right now she still is very insecure about her accent.
That hurts me to hear that, because your mom shouldn't feel like her voice is not valued because it doesn't sound like that of someone else.
But I grew up seeing her afraid of
to be like her authentic self.
And that's what I was taught. Stay small and don't be too obvious, because you won't go far if you're like that.
Right, like stay in line, do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Which is damaging, because I for the most part, white kids didn't have to think about that. They didn't have to think about fitting in or not fitting in. They just fit.
Now that I'm thinking about it, when I went to my friends' houses, I was like, why can't my family be like this? And I felt like inner resentment. I didn't even realize it, but I was jealous. I was like, I want a family like this. But those parents didn't have to worry about the things that our parents were worrying about. I feel so much compassion now that we're adults, but when you're a kid,
it's different.
It's so different.
And you're extremely sensitive to what's around you. Like, you digest environments and information very differently when you're a kid. And so I think now as we're older, we have a lot more, like you mentioned, compassion for their struggles and for what they did for us. And it was a very different time when they landed here.
They weren't taught the history of Canada, or they weren't taught colonialism. It was just a free country where they were able to escape. That's how they took it as. So when I was young and I would say these things to my parents, or even today I bring it up, they don't understand.
I can only imagine for your parents and for my parents, they were in environments where everyone around them looked like them. So they weren't exposed to racism from a young age. It's hard for them to relate because in their minds, they're here in a land of opportunity. I could only imagine them coming here as young adults and then suddenly being hit with a wave of racism and really not understanding where it's coming from. At one point in my mom's career, she didn't talk about her kids much. She didn't talk about our successes. She didn't talk about what we were doing. She didn't talk about, you know, my sister going to business school, me going to U of T, because she was scared that if her white colleagues knew about the success that her kids were achieving, that they would cut her own success at work. And it also makes me think of, especially being in environments where you are surrounded by a lot of white people, it's like, you know, they wanted her to be successful, but not too successful.
Right.
They only wanted her to have so much, and so she had to, whereas they could openly talk about, oh, Jimmy's doing this and John's doing that, and you know, she didn't feel in a safe space to be able to start talking confidently about these things, because she didn't want them to then turn around and be like, does she think she's on our level? You're not really enjoying some of these experiences as much as you'd like to. You're constantly just thinking, okay, I gotta protect my family, protect my livelihood, and make sure we are financially stable. I know for us, our experiences being young and dealing with racism, as a kid, there's a point where you can kind of shake it off, but there's a part of it that really does sit with you, and it doesn't go away.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't go away. Like I still struggle with it. I struggle with it in all aspects, work life, dating life. Okay, for the most part, I went to a school where there was probably 2 black guys, and everyone else was white.
Like high school?
Elementary school.
Oh, okay.
So my first crush was a white guy. I didn't plan for it.
Yeah,
it's literally all I was surrounded by.
Right.
As I got older, that shifted. Did I feel undesirable at certain points growing up? Yeah. I think that's the part that hurts because I think everybody wants to be wanted and maybe cared for and nurtured in some sort of way.
Especially when you're young.
You want the cool guy to be into you, or you want, I don't know, you want the guy that you're into to be into you, essentially. It's not like I looked at myself in the mirror and was like, ugh, I don't like how I look, I'm ugly. I was just kind of like, like, why not me?
In elementary school, it was never in my mind to go after a white guy, but it was just all that there was. So
yeah, I get that.
I started dating at a very young age, like in elementary school. Like I only knew white people, and like we grew up in a white neighborhood. We were playing or hanging out outside of school. It was with white people. And then I remember I made a Spanish friend. She was new. Even when I'm thinking about this now, she exposed me to just a whole other world.
My exposure was just so limited. So I was just like stuck in this environment and I was dying to get out.
I didn't know other pockets in Toronto when I was young. I felt like I was gonna be in that area forever.
I think I thought, honestly, I'm like, one of these guys I might end up marrying. But it's, you're so limited, right? Like, I think by grade 5, I was just like,
Okay, so who in this?
yeah, I'm like, well, who am I gonna marry? Am I marrying Steven or am I marrying Anthony? Which one is it? So I'm just naming names, by the way. But I didn't know who I was gonna end up with. I think as much as, unfortunately, we've had to deal with these sort of experiences of like just trying to be ourselves and express ourselves, but we're like, hey, you're not Italian, you're not Portuguese. Like, you know, or I also had to deal with the stereotypes of like, you're black. Like, why don't you talk this way? Or why don't you kind of act this way? Or why don't you act a little hood? Or why don't you act this? Or why don't you act that? And so I think for me, when I hit grade 9, 100% I was trying to prove a point. I think I was way out of my element. I dressed differently, I spoke differently, did my hair differently. Well, I think I was trying to fit in to the mold of what I thought Black identity meant from a larger, kind of more community-based perspective. I just wanted to be a little bit more gangster. Like, I wanted a part of me to act like a little bit more hood. I did not grow up in the hood. I have no connection or relation to the hood, but I just wanted to emulate something that made me seem like
you'd fit in with
fit in.
people that look like
me, you know? I was so fixated on when I go to high school, I'm gonna be around a lot more Black people and I'm gonna meet a Black guy, we're gonna get married, we're gonna have these like athletic babies, can't believe I'm saying that. But I had this idea in my mind of what that was gonna look like. And that also came from my parents as well. Like, I mean, again, immigrant parents, you know, they know what they know, and their experiences of racism kind of have led them to be like, it's safer to just date within your own community. So I believed that for a very long time. It will be safer for me, it'll be safer for my kids. I made a complete shift, like in high school. Like, I started to like a lot of Black guys. Did I have to deal with aspects of colorism within my own community? Yeah, and so that was like a whole new area of like racism that I had never thought existed. What I guess I identify colorism is just having a certain bias on someone based on their skin color. Obviously, within every community, you've got dark shades, medium shades, light shades, a bunch of different shades. But obviously, I'm a darker shade, and so I think I definitely experienced, you know, girls that were lighter than me being more desirable. And so that was a different type of experience I kind of had to deal with. I wasn't as received as I thought I would have been when it came to being interested in wanting to date Black men. It honestly was just the guys that I guess I was trying to go for. As I continued through high school, I just became exposed to liking guys that I found interesting or smart or you know, that were like ambitious or attractive to me in some sort of way. Did that eventually transition back into liking white guys? It did. I think like grade 10, I kind of had a bit of a grunge-ish look. Maybe it looked like I was going through an angsty phase, but I definitely was not. I think I was just trying to express myself. There were white guys popping up that were interested in me, and I think for a while I was just like, you know, it brought me back to elementary school, and I was just like, nah, I don't wanna. But then it also made me realize I can't generalize, and that not all of them came from environments that I came from.
Right.
And so I wasn't very quick to start dating white guys in high school. But the seeds were definitely planted as, you know, maybe one popped up and another one popped up. And then I also was kind of like, wait, why are they into me? And then there was also a question of why are they into me, but like some of the black guys that I am into are not into me. So I kind of battled with that. One of my first very serious relationships was after high school, and he happened to be white and he happened to have gone to my high school as well. He was not someone that I would have dated in high school. We bumped into each other at a party, and that's how it kind of started. From that experience, there was exposure to dating apps, and that changed things. I was getting a wide range of guys into me, but I think I was also finding a lot of white guys into me, and that kind of made me think like, is this what it's gonna be? Am I just gonna be dating white guys? Am I consciously dating as well? Like, am I dating to feel like I need to fit in? Or am I dating because I genuinely wanna date these guys? I've struggled to have these conversations because for the most part, in my past experiences of being in interracial relationships, a lot of them just don't understand the magnitude of some of the experiences I've had as a kid. They can empathize, but they don't go deep. They don't go to the level that I want them to go to.
I did not know that about you, going from elementary school to high school and wanting to date black guys. But I felt the same way in terms of wanting to date Asian guys.
Yeah.
The difference is that I still went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
So even though I still
high school,
with Italian people, Spanish people, and I still felt like I hate what they did to me, but they're still in the school with me right now.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them.
They were like running.
Oh yeah, 100. Yeah, and so it's like I felt this resentment for what they did to me, but at the same time, I had to fit in so that I could still be a part of the cool group. I wasn't dating in high school, so similar to you.
Yeah.
But I met my friend Amy, and you know her, in high school, and she introduced me to.
Hi, baby.
Yeah, James. But she introduced me to her Asian friends, and I was like, whoa, I'm so into this. And
Did it open up like a whole new world where you like?
I only wanted to date Asian guys at that point.
That is crazy that you and I have
Yeah.
the exact
It's the
same
same thing.
experience. Like,
Same thing,
we
literally.
experienced so much trauma, it made us literally want to run from that entire race.
Yeah.
It's not so much that we just want to be in a relationship with someone that looks good. It's like, can this person peel off those layers with
Yeah, like
you?
can they hold your traumas, like,
Yeah.
and help you work through them?
Exactly, because I think that's really important as
Yeah.
well. And you learn that as you get older. I think my dating experiences in my mid-20s, I wasn't necessarily thinking of, you know, do I want to date someone that can like go there or go deep? As you get older, you're like, yeah, you do. You definitely
You wanna
need someone.
connect with them on
Yeah,
that level.
exactly. It is quite the learning experience when you are in an interracial relationship, and I know you are in one as well. But I understand that it's different to some degree because your partner, your partner is not white.
Yeah.
And is that relieving for you? Shout out to Angie's man. He's fucking amazing. He's somewhere sitting back there as we're recording this.
But no, it is so nice to like have someone to talk to that does understand being oppressed.
In my relationship now, we've had these conversations very early on. And so for me, that was a huge indicator of like, is this someone I can be with, right? Because if we can't have these conversations now, then this isn't happening. If you need me to teach you, this is definitely not happening.
Yeah.
And you can just tell by the energy of how they respond to your stories.
One thing that I really admire in my relationship now is it started from our first date. And I didn't even start that conversation. So for me, I was like, wow, like this person has come correct. It's not so much him saying how he thinks it is or what he thinks or what his thought process is. It's more of him like, I want to like share with me, like talk to me, like I want to listen. And so, and he's learning a lot through a lot of the stories that I've shared in my experiences. And I said, I think the biggest thing that I've struggled with, and maybe you struggled with as well, and even now in certain aspects of our life, is the fact that a lot of white people believe or are raised to believe that everything belongs to them. Whether it's culture, whether it's food, whether it's music, whether it's words, white people that want to use the N-word, or white people thinking it's okay to call you Chink as a nickname, thinking that's acceptable.
When you're white in this country, you're taught that everything belongs to you. You think you had a right to everything. You had a right to go where you, and you're conditioned this way. It's not, because your hair is a texture or your skin is light. It's the fact that the laws and the culture tell you this. You got a right to go where you want to go, do what you want to do, be however, and people just got to accommodate themselves to you.
He even tells me from some of his own experiences. So he grew up playing a lot of hockey competitively. And so he's been in a lot of white environments. And sometimes in those environments, there's a lot of racism. And he even speaks to that. He made a decision at one point to leave that environment because that's not who he was.
Right.
And I thought, oh shit, like.
Yeah, that takes a lot.
And that takes a lot because he thought, you know, this is not representative of who I am and my beliefs and who I am as a person and, you know, also how I was raised. And so this isn't an environment that is inclusive. This isn't an environment that's diverse. He eventually reached a point where, you know, he had to drop some friends. These experiences have shaped us in so many different ways. We're still unlearning.
There's things that have come up for me that I didn't allow myself to go back to, but I think in talking with you, I remembered certain things that I'm like, oh shoot, okay, that's something I gotta definitely work through.
Exactly. It's the unpacking, it's some of the learning and unlearning in all of this. I think this conversation was like a really good starting point for us to open up about our experiences, and hopefully it can encourage other people to open up about theirs, because I feel like we're not the only ones that had these experiences. I'm happy that at least for us now, with where things are at, you know, we can look at these experiences and be like, all right, it happened. Now, you know, how has it shaped me? How do we move forward?
You're one of those people that can laugh at anything, and I'm just like, I love the innocence.
If my laugh can make you laugh, make the next person laugh, make the next person laugh, that's all that matters, right?
You've made my serious moments, you've made me see the lighter side of it.
Yeah. I will definitely say our funniest and closest working experience was at Montclair.
Oh my God.
I don't think I've laughed harder. Maybe that's when you and I became a bit closer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Nobody really understood our relationship. Just seeing you come through the back door, I already start laughing. It was a lot of fun.
The amount of times
You would just be like, Topaz.
exactly.
Yeah, see?
Our
childhood has followed us. Our childhood has followed us. But yeah, just hearing you speak and just hearing you, you know, do your thing and be yourself always made the workday like fun. We should have a song. Have a song at the end.
Oh, you know what song?
What song? What song is that? What song is that? Pump it! Sorry, Tesh. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking loud.
No,
listen.
You know that one.
Yo, this is our jam. Hey. Hey.
Double.
Here. Hey. Double where?
On the right.
Yeah. Oh, wait.